Police officers also engage in what you might think of as sting operations. This is more the TV stuff, that everybody thinks happens all the time, but it really doesn't. Sting operations are where an undercover police operation has police pose as criminals to trap law violators. Vice squads are a good example of this, are police officers assigned to enforce morality-based laws like those related to prostitution, gambling, and pornography. These blur the line between law enforcement and criminal activity, and as you can imagine, those that engage in undercover work sometimes engage in criminal activity as well. We also have to evaluate the investigations, and there's some concern which has arisen about the efficiency of detectives, once again based on this research that's being done. It is legitimate for policing administrators to be concerned about the efficiency of the investigative function. RAND studies indicates that detectives spend the majority of their time on unproductive activities, dragging things out longer than they may need to be. Even so, detectives are still performing a valuable service here. Some critics of this suggest that patrol officers are more effective at not solving crimes, and others are saying they're more effective at solving crimes. If a crime is reported in progress, there's a 33% chance of making an arrest. The probability, of course, declines 10% if the crime is reported 1 minute later, and 5% if it's more than 15 minutes. So the majority of cases end up being solved when a perpetrator is identified at the scene by patrol officers. But in the end, detectives may lack resources necessary to conduct lengthy investigations. Therefore, departments are really concerned with this concept of efficiency. In the end, the research results focus on 4 things. Unsolved cases. Almost 50% of burglary cases are screened out by supervisors before assignment to a detective for a follow-up investigation. Of those assigned, 75% are dropped after the first day of the follow-up investigation. Although robbery cases are more likely to be assigned to detectives, 75% of them are also dropped after 1 day of investigation. The length of investigation is something that falls under the purview of the research. The vast majority of cases are investigated no more than 4 hours, stretching over 3 days. An average of 11 days elapses between the initial report of a crime and the suspension of the investigation itself. We have to be concerned with sources of information. Early in an investigation, the focus is on the victim. As the investigation is pursued, emphasis shifts to the suspect. The most critical information for determining case outcome is the name and description of the suspect and related crime information. Victims are most often the source of information. Unfortunately, as we all know, witnesses, informants, and members of the police department are consulted far less often than they should be in this process. However, when those sources are tapped, they are likely to produce useful information. And then, of course, we're concerned with effectiveness. Preliminary investigations by patrol officers, of course, are critical. In situations where suspects' identities is known, especially immediately after the crime is committed, detectives make an arrest in less than 10% of those cases. So, in the end, it's less likely you're going to get caught than you might think, especially when you're watching TV shows. How do we improve the investigation process? Well, one way is to bring technology to bear on it. Information technology is one type of technology to bring to bear, using databases with existing data to find out information about potential suspects. Communications, of course, are extremely important between departments, within departments. The use of criminal identification or COPLINK. Access to multiple databases has greatly enhanced the ability of detectives to gather and confirm this type of information. COPLINK is one of these types of databases, and it searches a database of past criminal records to produce a list of possible suspects for the one that you're looking at. Of course, DNA profiling has really come onto the scene recently. It has proved to be an effective investigative tool, and we've seen at least a number of serial killers, a number of unsolved cases being solved with the use of DNA testing today. We can use forensic science, of course, the use of scientific techniques to investigate crime and solve cases. Forensic, of course, means pertaining to the law. And forensic scientists perform comprehensive chemical and physical analysis of evidence submitted by law enforcement agencies. This, of course, has increased in popularity because of TV shows like CSI, and, of course, these TV shows grossly over-exaggerate what is being done at the department level, for the most part. The emergence of new technologies like DNA, blood splatters, ballistics, and their acceptance by the court has encouraged detectives to use more technology as they move forward. And forensic analysts also provide testimony in court. Some are generalists, while others specialize in a particular area like toxicology, or blood pattern analysis, crime scene investigation, or impression evidence as well. When we think about community-oriented policing, the original efforts were undertaken in police community relations, which we called PCR teams. Police agencies have been trying for several decades to gain the cooperation and respect of communities they serve. At first, the efforts in improving the relationships between police departments and the public involved programs with the general title of, as I said, police community relations. Although PCR efforts demonstrated the willingness of police agencies to cooperate with the public, some experts believed that law enforcement agencies needed to undergo a significant transformation to create meaningful participation with the public. We've seen a lot of this happening over the last 5 years. Baltimore, Chicago, St. Louis, all have tried to reach out to the community and create better relationships. This led to the development of community-oriented policing, or COP, which is a set of programs and strategies designed to bring police and public closer together and create a more cooperative working environment between them. How do we implement community policing, community-oriented policing? First and foremost, a foot patrol. This is one of the most common approaches. Foot patrols are efforts aimed at forming a bond with community residents by acquainting them with the individual officers who patrol their neighborhoods and letting them know that the police are caring and available. Since the advent of these programs, hundreds of communities have adopted innovative forms of decentralized, neighborhood-based COP models. The federal government has encouraged the growth of COP by providing billions of dollars to hire and train officers through its Office of Community-Oriented Police Services. But in order to fully implement COP, the department must reevaluate its conceptualization of the role of police. This happens most effectively in three areas. First, neighborhood orientation. Problem solving is best done at the neighborhood level where issues originate, not at a far off central headquarters where things did not initiate. We need to change the management style. Traditionally, police agencies are managed from top down and internally. The patrol officers become a key decision maker in COP-oriented processes. And changing recruitment and training. COP requires a different type of police officer, one who is capable of developing community organizing and problem-solving skills, along with traditional police skills. They must succeed more on their ability to solve problems effectively instead of their own ability to make arrests or issue citations. As one might guess, there are some problems to community-oriented policing. First, defining the community. Critics believe COP works well in stable, affluent areas, but not so much in historically marginalized areas. You have to redefine roles. It's important for police administrators to define the roles and limitations of community-oriented policing. If you don't, you're going to have problems. You need to reorient police values. Police officers who have traditional crime orientation often find accepting the precepts of COP difficult. We need to revise the training. More on training of problem solving, crime prevention, and diversity and other skills is necessary to fully implement COP. And we need to reorient recruitment. Problem-oriented policing should be closely associated with community-oriented policing. It should stress proactive problem solving and developing long-term community solutions. Its police managers must learn how to develop community resources, design efficient and cost-effective solutions, and focus on hotspots. Something you might think about: how might problem-oriented policing evolve over the next 50 years? And assuming that there was enough funding, would it be appropriate to spend the funds on problem-oriented policing or something else?